Picture this. You're one of Noah's daughters-in-law. The world around you is corrupt, violence is rampant, and wickedness is the norm. Then your father-in-law comes to you with news that sounds unbelievable. God is going to destroy the earth with a flood, and he's been commanded to build an ark. The fear, the uncertainty, it must have been overwhelming. Yet despite all that, you decide to follow Noah into the ark, into an unknown future. This brings us to Genesis 6:18, where God says to Noah, "But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you." At first glance, this might seem like a straightforward promise of safety for Noah's family. But why did God include Noah's wife, his sons, and their wives in this covenant? After all, the text doesn't tell us they were righteous like Noah. So why were they saved? Let's consider this. God's decision to save Noah's family wasn't just about preserving human life. It was about preserving the foundation of humanity itself, family. The family unit, even when flawed, is essential to God's plan for the world. But there's another layer to this story that we sometimes overlook. Noah's family also exhibited faith. They could have easily decided not to follow him into the ark. They could have rejected the notion of a flood, dismissed Noah's warnings, and gone about their lives. But they didn't. By following Noah, his family demonstrated a significant level of faith. It wasn't just Noah's righteousness that saved them. It was also their willingness to trust in God's plan, even when they couldn't see the full picture. They didn't just board the ark. They took a leap of faith, trusting that God was indeed speaking through Noah. Now let's focus on the women, Noah's wife and his sons' wives. They weren't merely passengers. They brought with them the potential for the future. These women would become the mothers of all future generations. Even if the Bible doesn't explicitly state their righteousness, their inclusion in God's covenant speaks volumes about their role in his divine plan. By including the women, God ensured that humanity could start anew. This wasn't just a physical salvation, it was a spiritual and relational one as well. It's also worth noting that God values relationships. Even in the midst of judgment, he didn't isolate Noah from his family. God could have easily started over with just Noah, but he didn't. He chose to include Noah's family, imperfections and all, showing us that God's plan often includes the people closest to us, even if they aren't perfect. This brings us to a broader lesson for our lives today. Sometimes God brings people along with us on our journey of faith, not because they're perfect, but because he has a purpose for them too. The story of Noah's family reminds us that God's grace extends beyond just the obviously righteous. It reaches into our families, our relationships, and even into those parts of our lives where we least expect it. And just like Noah's family, our loved ones can choose to join us on this journey of faith, even when the path is uncertain. So the next time you think about Noah and the ark, remember that God didn't just save Noah. He saved a family, and through that family, he gave the world a second chance. The women on that ark were more than just passengers. They were essential to God's plan for humanity's future. And they, along with Noah's sons, showed faith by stepping into the ark, trusting in God's promise. So what can modern women learn from the story of Noah's wife and his sons' wives? First, we can learn the importance of faith, even when the future is uncertain. These women followed Noah into the ark, not because they had all the answers, but because they trusted in God's plan. In our own lives, we might face situations where the outcome isn't clear. But like these women, we can choose to step forward in faith, trusting that God's plan is bigger than our understanding. Second, this story teaches us about the value of relationships. God didn't just save Noah, he saved his entire family. This reminds us that our relationships, whether with family, friends, or community, are integral to our journey of faith. As women, we often play a key role in nurturing and sustaining these relationships. By prioritizing and investing in the people around us, we can be part of God's work in their lives, just as Noah's family was part of God's plan to renew the world. Lastly, the story of Noah's family shows us that while we do need to strive for holiness, we don't have to be perfect to be part of God's plan. The Bible doesn't emphasize the righteousness of Noah's wife or his sons' wives, yet they were still included in God's covenant. This is a powerful reminder that God can use each of us, flaws and all, to fulfill his purposes. We don't have to have it all together to be part of something great. We just need to be willing to step out in faith and trust that God will guide us along the way. As you reflect on these lessons, think about how you can apply them to your own life. Are there areas where you need to step out in faith? Are there relationships that need nurturing or attention? Remember, God's plan for you is unique and purposeful, and like the women in Noah's story, you have an important role to play. If this message has touched your heart, be sure to subscribe and join us as we continue to explore the incredible lessons we can learn from the women in the Bible. Their stories are our stories, and together we can uncover the deeper truths that God wants to reveal to us.